This video features the guitar and bass parts that are present during the intro of the song. The tuning used in this video and on the record is E flat and 440 wavelength calibration. If you are unsure how to tune the E flat, please watch the video on this channel, E flat tuning and enharmonic notes for guitar and bass by Marc Wilson, and then return. During the intro of the song, the bass guitar is going to play a 4-measure long riff pattern that will repeat itself 4 times. It's going to use a technique called syncopation. What syncopation is when you're accenting on the upbeats instead of on the downbeats. We're going to start out the riff by playing the open E string. We're going to pick it down on 1, the very first beat of the first measure. We're going to let the open string ring out as a quarter note. On 2, we're going to take the side of the hand and rest it on the E string to deaden it out. This is going to create an 8th note rest. We're going to repeat that process on 3 and 4 also, the other downbeats in the measure. On the upbeats in between, we're going to play E notes, and that's what syncopation is. On the and beat directly after 2, we'll pick the low E string downwards, let it ring out as an 8th note. On the and beat directly after 3, we're going to do the same thing. On the and beat right after 4, the final upbeat of the measure, we're going to play this note located on the A string at the 7th fret with your 3rd finger. That's an E note. This E note is higher in pitch than the open E string. We're going to pick this one upwards, and we're going to do that for a reason which I'll explain later. With a 4-count lead in, this is what the first measure of the riff is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and. Okay, what I did there is the open E string. Those notes are going to accent tightly with the bass drum. And I finished up on this higher pitched E note at the end of the measure and picked it up because the next 2 measures in the riff pattern are going to be a repeat of what we just did. So I can go back to the open E string on 1 and properly pick it down. Notice also that when I counted it, I was only counting the notes that were physically being played. Sometimes if you're trying to count notes that you're not actually playing, it makes it more difficult to do it. So for simplicity, I didn't count the 2s, 3s, and 4s, but keep in mind that the foot was still tapping on those beats to keep time. With a 4-count lead in, let's play the first 3 measures of the riff pattern, and watch how the right hand is muting out that E string on the 2s, 3s, and 4s to create those 8th note rests. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 1, and 1, and. Okay, now we're at the point where we're at the 4th measure. We're going to start out the 4th measure playing it exactly the same way, right up until the final and beat after 3. That one we're going to pick upwards instead of down. We're going to fill for the last quarter of the measure to finish up the riff pattern. On 4, you're going to place your first finger on the 5th fret of the low E string. This is an A note. Okay, we're going to pick that down. And right after that, we're going to hammer on to the 7th fret with the 3rd finger. We're not going to pick that note. It's going to be sounded entirely by the left hand like this. These are 2 16th notes and they're counted 4E. Just like that. And when we finish up the fill, we're going to take the first finger and put it on the A string at the 5th fret. This is a D note. We're going to pick that up and let it ring out as an 8th note. The fill is going to be counted and 4E in, just like this. And 4E in. Okay, notice the picking motion. Up, down, up. And 4E in. With a 4-count lead in, let's play the entire riff pattern one time. Right from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 1, and 1, and 1, and 4E in. The drums and the bass will accent together on 2 beats to key the rest of the band into the song. you'll need your drummer to click the sticks 3 times to cue you in. On the upbeat or and beat directly after 3, you'll pick the open E string up as an 8th note. And on 4, you're going to pick down on the E note located on the A string at the 7th fret, and you're going to slide down in pitch as you do it. With a 3 count lead in, this is what you're going to do. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the whole band enters on 1. The drums on that and beat after 3, they're going to accent by hitting the bass drum and a crash cymbal at the same time. On the 4 beat, when you slide, the drummer will hit the snare and another crash cymbal at the same time. And then on 1, when the rest of the band enters, the drummer will hit a bass drum and the crash again. Let's run through that riff pattern a couple times. This time I'm going to use my fingers instead of a pick. Since we're using our fingers, we're not going to rest the side of our hand on the E string on the 2s, 3s, and 4s to create those 8th note rests. Instead, we're going to put a finger on the string to deaden it out and then pick it with the same finger. You'll notice that the fingers will alternate as this is being played. I'm not going to count this out as we play it, but I will give the 4 count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. The supporting rhythm guitar part is also going to play a 4 measure long pattern that's going to repeat itself 4 times during the intro to the song. The pattern is going to work tightly with the bass guitar, and it's almost identical to the bass guitar. There's just a couple subtle differences here. We're going to use what they call a double stop. We're going to place the first finger on the A string at the 5th fret. That's a D note. We're going to play that in tandem with the open E string picked down just like this. We're pretty much going to use all downstrokes here with one exception at the end. Okay, notice that I took the side of my hand after I picked that and laid it right where the saddle pieces and the strings meet. Okay, on 2, what we're going to do is we're going to release the pressure on that string with the first finger. And we're going to still pick the top 2 strings, but what we're going to have here is part ghost note and part palm muted open string. The A string will be just a click, a ghost note. The E string will actually be palm muted like this. Okay? So the first 2 beats of the first measure are just like this. Count of 1, 2. 1, 2. Okay, and then the upbeat directly after 2, we're going to pick the double stop again. Okay, notice that when we pick the double stop, I'm pulling my hand off the saddle piece to let it ring out for an 1/8 of a beat. And on 3, we're going to lay the side of the hand back on the saddle piece to deaden it out. That's going to be an 8th note rest. On the upbeat directly after 3, we're going to play the double stop again. On 4, we're going to dampen it out for another 8th note rest. And on the final upbeat of the measure, we're going to do another one of those half ghost note, half palm mute things. Okay? This is what that first measure is going to sound like with the 4 count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and. Okay. Remember that that's going to repeat itself 3 times. With the 4 count lead in, let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, and. Okay, I actually went 3.5 measures. The last half of that last measure that we didn't play yet is actually going to follow the bass guitar note for note. What we're going to do there is pick the open E string upwards on the and beat directly after 3. Okay, that'll be followed by the first finger on the 5th fret of the E string, the A note. The fill's actually going to be exactly the same. We're going to pick it downwards on 4. We're going to hammer onto the 7th fret with the 3rd finger. That's a B note. This is going to be 2/16 notes counted for E. And the first finger is going to go back on that D note of the A string. We're going to pick that up on the and beat. So the fill is going to be in 4 just like this. 4 With the 4 count lead in, let's run through this pattern one time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 4 The supporting rhythm guitar part uses a wah pedal. It's played on the double stops to accent with the bass guitar and the bass drum. If you don't have one, it will still sound okay. If you do have one and use it, a lot of quality will be added to the song. Guitar 2 is also going to follow a 4-measure long pattern that repeats itself. We're going to start out by placing the 3rd finger on the D string at the 9th fret. We're going to pick this down on 1 and allow it to ring out for 3/8 of a measure. In sheet music notation, this would be a quarter note with a dot beside it. On the and beat directly after 2, we're going to place the 1st finger on the G string at the 7th fret. We're going to pick this up and allow that to ring out for another 3/8 of a measure. On the final quarter of the measure, we're going to do a quick hammer on from that last note to the note on the same string at the 9th fret using your 3rd finger. Okay, this should sound like one note, just like this. Almost like you did a quick slide. With a 4 count lead in, this is what that first measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4. Now that we know that much, the next 2 measures are going to use that same timing, that same count, and that same picking technique. We'll start out the 2nd measure by placing the 1st finger on the D string at the 7th fret. We're going to pick this down on 1. On the and beat directly after 2, we're going to do a quick hammer on with the 3rd finger to the 9th fret. And on 4, we're going to shift down a step in pitch to the 5th fret on that same string. With a 4 count lead in, this is what the 2nd measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4. With a 4 count lead in, this is what the first 2 measures are going to sound like combined. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4. Now when we start the 3rd measure, we're going to do a hammer on 1. We're going to pick down and hammer on to the 7th fret of that same string using the 3rd finger. On the and beat directly after 2, we're going to pick up on that note where the 1st finger is. It's on the D string at the 5th fret. And on the 4 beat of that measure, the last quarter note, we're going to place the 3rd finger on the A string at the 7th fret and pick that down. This is what the 3rd measure is going to sound like with the 4 count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4. With the 4 count lead in, this is what the first 3 measures combined are going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4. Now that last note is going to continue on into the 4th measure. We're going to let it sustain until the final and beat directly after 2. We're going to pick it up there. And to finish out this pattern, we're going to double the fill on the bass and on the rhythm guitar by playing that in 4 just like this. And 4 With a 4 count lead in, let's do the entire pattern one time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 4 again. Guitar 2 is actually played with the talk box on the studio recording of the song. This part will still sound good even if you don't have one. All these guitar and bass parts will reappear as a bridge at 1 minute and 45 seconds on your timer. They continue on through both of the verses too. They will also reappear under the guitar solo at 3 minutes and 16 seconds. They will resurface for the final time in the outro at 4 minutes and 25 seconds. At the very ending of the song, guitar 1 is going to substitute in a different fill, just like this. That's going to be played while guitar 2 and the bass are doing this fill. What we're doing there is taking the third finger and we're going to lay it across the G, B, and high E strings at the 14th fret. We're going to start out by playing 3/16 notes counted E-ana, picked right on the beat right after 3. We're going to start by picking up, down, and up like this, E-ana. And on 4, we're going to place the first finger on the 12th fret, barring them same 3 strings. We're going to play 3 more 16th notes counted 4 E-an, just like this, down, up, down, 4 E-an. Then we're going to slide down in pitch at the end. So with a 3 count lead in, this is how that fill is going to sound. 1, 2, 3 E-an, 4 E-an. This bass part can be beefed up quite a bit without really changing the bass line at all. We're going to add a little technique called slapping and popping. What slapping is when you take the tip of your thumb and hit the string just like this. Sounds punchier. The trick is not to use your whole thumb, you just use the tip, because when you get to higher pitched strings like the A string, if you're not using the tip of your thumb, the thumb gets in the way and you hit other strings that you don't intend to hit. What popping is when you take your first or second finger and you hook the string and kind of snap it like this instead of picking it. Makes it sound a little punchier. Keep in mind that this E note, where the first finger is on the D string at the 2nd fret, is exactly the same as this note here on the A string at the 7th fret. I'm going to use my hand to kind of dampen out the strings and give it a little click sound. This is what you're going to have.